Hello students, today I am going to deal with the topic microevolution and macroevolution. As we know, evolution has been described as the process of gradual modification in the living organisms, both in plants or animals, so as to establish diversity in the world of living beings. The two fundamental patterns in the process of evolution are the sequential evolution and the divergent evolution. In sequential evolution, minor changes in the gene pool of a population are passed on from one generation to the next, with the result that no new populations are identified. Not even the descendant population is genetically identical with its predecessor. The divergent evolution is represented as the changes which result in sudden evolution of new species, populations, families, groups or classes. Further, evolution is classified into two categories: the microevolution, that is the evolution of subspecies or geographical races, and the macroevolution, that is the evolution of species, genera and phyla. In simple terms, we understand microevolution as the evolution on a smaller scale. This is evolution within a particular species. It is also the change in the gene frequency of a population over time. Whereas macroevolution is the evolution on a large scale. It includes changes as the evolution of a new species from a common ancestor or the evolution of one species into two. In this diagram, we can observe the difference between macroevolution and microevolution. Now, let us understand the microevolution. The evolution which results from the interaction of the elemental forces of evolution, that is mutation, variations, recombination, natural selection and the genetic drift, to produce relatively small changes in the population or populations. The basic process of microevolution consists of change in the gene frequency in a population from one generation to the next. There are some microevolutionary forces that are the mutation, variation, recombination and natural selections. The micromutations or little mutations are the main source of producing changes in the gene frequencies in the gene pool of local populations. These are gene mutations. Genetic recombination or Mendelian recombination changes the gene frequencies in the gene pool of the population. In addition to these two types of microevolutionary forces, that is the genetic recombination and the gene mutation, genetic drift and natural selection also operate on the population to change their gene frequency and thereby disturb the genetic equilibrium. Therefore, we can say that the four main microevolutionary forces that leads to microevolution in a local population are gene mutation, genetic recombination, genetic drift and natural selection. The variations introduced in a gene pool of population by mutations and recombination are operated upon by natural selection. As a result, the offspring of population are found to be different genetically as well as phenotypically. This changed population or decent population is the product of microevolution. Changes produced by mutation and recombination may be beneficial or may not be so. But since the changed genotype interacts with the environment, only those changes which increase the rate of reproduction of the organism directly or indirectly become more numerous in the population. In this diagram, we can observe the example of microevolution, that is the evolution of subspecies or geographical races. Now, understand the term macroevolution, that is also known as adaptive radiation. The evolution which results in the production of new adaptive types through a process of population fragmentation and genetic divergence is known as macroevolution. It operates above the species level and results in the splitting of the population of a species into several subgroups, each of which exhibits changes in a definite adaptive direction. These changes are known as adaptive trends and the phenomena as the adaptive radiation or macroevolution. It means macroevolution is actually adaptive radiation. Now, understand the mechanism of macroevolution. Macroevolution operates above species level and results in the establishment of new genera, families and orders. The changes in the organization occur on account of sudden mutations of large size, which are named macromutations or systematic mutations. Macroevolution occurs in a group of individuals which have entered a new adaptive zone free of competition. Now, understand this phenomena. In a new adaptive zone, the number of individuals is far less and the opportunities to avail new habitats are more. Therefore, the intraspecific struggle is roughly nil. Moreover, the new zone will be almost free from enemies. Thus, the newly entered population enters all the available habitats of the adaptive zone and start adapting themselves according to the conditions and need. It means that the one population which had acquired the new zone gets splitted up into several subpopulations, each of which accumulates mutations and evolves independently but simultaneously in different directions. On account of the different environmental conditions, adaptive modifications occur in different directions. Adaptive modifications in each subpopulation have a cumulative effect and are therefore directional. Now, there are some essential features of macroevolution. Macroevolution occurs on account of macromutations. Macroevolution occurs in those populations which have entered or acquired a new adaptive zone. Again, macroevolution results in evolutionary divergence, that is, the pre-existing population divides into several diverging descendant populations by acquiring spatial adaptations. Macroevolution produces groups of parallel spatial adaptations among divergent stocks. And macroevolution leads to specialization in a particular direction. As a result, forms with spatial adaptations become rigidly specialized to narrow adaptive subzones and reach the adaptive peak. This very often leads to over-specialization and finally to the extinction because over-specialized forms are unable to modify when they enter a new adaptive zone. In this diagram, we understand macroevolution, that is the evolution of species, genera, and so on. Now, we summarize the topic by comparing the two types of evolution. Firstly, in macroevolution, large-scale changes occur in gene frequency, whereas in microevolution, small-scale changes occur in gene frequency. Secondly, macroevolution takes longer time period, whereas microevolution go to few generations. Thirdly, macroevolution operates above the level of species, whereas microevolution operates within species. Again, macroevolution is not directly observed, whereas microevolution is observable. And thus, there are many more differences between microevolution and macroevolution.